Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another super cool radio interview. I'm your host, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have an incredible guest that I'm super excited to have on the podcast. He's an incredible musician, songwriter, performer, a founding member of the Kingbees, and in March, he released his latest solo album entitled Straight Up. Please welcome Jamie James.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much, Matthew. That's a wonderful introduction. You should move to Los Angeles and introduce me like that all the time. That'd be wonderful.
Hey, I could do that. I have time. I could definitely, let's talk. But no, it's, as I said, it's incredible to have you on the podcast. Like, obviously, reading up on your whole music career and everything. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast because obviously the new album Straight Up, I've listened to it. I very much enjoyed it, but also just your whole music career. Like, I'm kind of curious before we talk about Straight Up. I heard in a previous interview from you that rockabilly, what has become rockabilly, that genre really didn't exist when you started.
I mean, not well. I wasn't aware of it. I'm sure it existed because it's been around since the 1950s, but it wasn't part of the meme or the music scene in Los Angeles that time or anywhere really. I mean, I think that you'd have to credit Robert Gordon as a revivalist in terms of a rockabilly revivalist with his song Black Slacks. From that band in the 50s. I can't remember their name, but I wasn't aware of that. And I wasn't aware of that until Doug Weston, the owner of the Troubadour then, used that terminology when I called him to book the Kingbees for any gig that he had available. And he said, well, I happen to have something this Sunday night. It's a rockabilly thing. You guys sound like you'd be perfect for it. Can you do it? And so we did it. And lo and behold, there was a group on there called Jerry Zarimba and the Rockabilly. I can't remember now. There was two other acts, and that's how it was introduced to me. And this was back in May of 1979. So we're close to an anniversary. It was May 6th. That was our Kingbees' very first show, actually. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. So, yeah, maybe I didn't explain that, but properly, but so was rockabilly, was that when did that become more mainstream, that become more common?
Well, there was a great band I guess about maybe a year and a half later out of New York called the Stray Cats, and I think they kind of put it on the map. The Stray Cats did. They're a fantastic group of wonderful musicians, and they had some great songs, and I think they kind of cemented that. The Kingbees, we actually broke up before MTV was a thing, before MTV even came out. So, we missed that, but that's okay. I mean, because I wouldn't say that we were a strict rockabilly band. To me, the rockabilly bands are with the upright bass going, and we were more of a power pop trio, maybe, or I don't know. But I do know that when our first record came out on RSO, which was the Robert Stigwood organization, and coincidentally, Robert Stigwood had been known because he managed the Bee Gees back in the 1960s. And then he went on and he managed the band from Great Britain called Cream. He managed Cream. And before he managed the Bee Gees, he had worked for Brian Epstein. Robert Stigwood got his start back in those roots. So it was a deep rock and roll roots for him. And by the 80s, and in the 70s, he had big success with a couple of movies, Grease and Saturday Night Fever. He produced those movies. And so he was literally one of the entertainment business's first billionaires with a B, billionaire. And he liked the Kingbees and he signed us to a deal. And so, but he was thinking more along the lines of a 50s revival. Like he said, you're my new Elvis. So a lot of people related rockabilly to Elvis Presley, I think, and that kind of thing. What happened is, I've been playing in fact, all the guys on the record, the great drummer Tom Walsh and the great bass player Tom Mancias and keyboardist Ken Stange the four of us had been backing Dennis Quaid for most of the 2000s. Somewhere just before the pandemic, around 2019 to 2020, that whole thing slowed down. And then the pandemic came, and I had a personal health problem that laid me up for a while. And so during that time, I just got back into songwriting, and I had all these songs I'd written, and I hated to waste how tight the four of us were as a musical group. And so when I called them, I said, look, I got some new songs I'd like to record. And so I played the songs for the guys, and they liked them. So we went in and recorded in July of just last year, actually 2024. And then I sent the songs to Carl, and Carl liked them. And so I've been with Carl since about the summertime, working on this together. And his support really honestly has been, first off, a surprise to me. And then secondly, just a wonderful kind of boost, a wind in your sails, so to speak.
So now with that, so straight up, like obviously I've listened to the album. So like, I'm curious, how was it writing and recording the album? Was it like a different experience compared to like previous albums or songs you've written and recorded?
Man, that's a good question. Yeah, it was very, very similar to the way I came up and recorded the very first Kingbees album from 1980. And in that the Kingbees album, Michael Rex and we had been playing we recorded it in like January. We'd been playing for almost 20 years together with Dennis, so we were tight. And the Kingbees, we went in, and the producer said, well, how are you going to go about this? And I said, listen, we're a live band. Let us just set up and play live, and you just turn on the recording machine. And so that's what we did with the first Kingbees album. We just blazed through it and recorded it basically live. And that's the same on Straight Up. On Monday, on Monday in June last year, Tom, the bass player, and Tom, the drummer, and Ken was out of town at the time. So the three of us went into a studio in downtown LA called Robot Kitten with a wonderful engineer named Paul Rossler. And he said, he thought we were just going to try and maybe do one or two tracks that day. And I said, no, I'm going to do the whole album. And he couldn't believe it. And we set up, and I said, you just turn on the recording machine and let us play. And I had my harmonica rack on and my guitar, and there was Tom on the bass, and Tom, the drummer, was out in the drum booth, and we just blazed through all 10 songs. So what you hear is that's my original singing that day, from that day, not all the original harmonica parts, so because I had to redo a couple of those, but all the original guitar work, the original vocals, it's all from that one afternoon. So that was very similar to my Kingbees experience.
Oh, that's really cool that, that kind of connection with that, and, kind of similar with how you recorded this album. So I'm curious, like that session, how long were you in the studio that day?
Just under 4 hours.
Okay, nice.
Because if I would have pushed it any longer, I wanted to do more, and the drummer came out, and I think he was ready to punch me out. He was worn out, because we, like, if you listen to Straight Up, he's playing. I mean, it's like, it's live, man. It's like real. And I kept going, come on, man, one more, it's like, but yeah, it was just about 3.5 hours, I'd say.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, obviously, as I said, I really enjoyed the album, and I kind of like, it has that kind of, recording live, I think gives that kind of, a little bit like more energy or more, substance to it, where you can tell it's just like
100%. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. It's a living, breathing piece of music,
Oh, for sure. And it definitely comes through on the record. So like, I'm curious so with that, like, do you approach like recording music similarly or differently compared to like performing live?
No. I approach it the very similarly to live. I do a couple of vocal warm-ups, and then I plug in and I turn the volume up on my guitar, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have at it, and that's it.
Oh, right on. So, and also kind of going along with that, do you have like a preferred like guitar or a favorite guitar to record music?
Yeah, yes, I do. I for this session, I used an the first half of 1966, a Fender Stratocaster guitar. I used an old 1954 Martin acoustic guitar that incidentally used to belong to a very good friend of mine by the name of Harry Dean Stanton, God rest his soul. And I played with Harry Dean for many years, and it's the same guitar, incidentally, that he used in the movie Cool Hand Luke. If you go back and watch the movie Cool Hand Luke, you'll see Harry in a few scenes playing a guitar in the prison's their bunkhouse, prisoners' bunkhouse, and singing. And that's the same guitar I used on this record. I put it on there as a personal, just as a personal homage to Harry, because we played so much music together for so many years, and I love him dearly. And so that was 1954 Martin for the acoustic, and I think I used because I overdubbed some of the electric, and I used a 1934 Gibson L4, which is actually on the video "Let the Praying Begin."
Oh, right on, right on. That's actually "Let the Praying Begin." That's my favorite song off the album. I think it's a great opening song. But so with Harry's guitar, so how'd you come to own it?
No, he gave it to me. We were close friends, and when he passed, he passed it to me.
Very nice, very nice. But yeah, he's definitely, obviously, I'm familiar as an actor, musician. He's definitely amazing in both, and definitely will be missed. He's just incredible, just all around talent.
Yeah, but that's it. Because we recorded the record so on that Monday afternoon, then I went back in a couple of days later and just redid a couple of harmonica things and added Harry's. I wanted to have Harry on, so I put it's on every track basically. I just snuck it in there as a little thing, and because that's how I write the songs at home here. I go back to my daughter's bedroom when she's not here, and I just set up my acoustic and that's how my harmonica rack, and I just sing and play. And so I like to keep things like as close to the root as possible musically, as close to the source, I would have to say, like the source of where it comes from. I don't know where it comes from, but it does come from somewhere. And so I like to try and stay so that the listener for my stuff or anything Jamie James that you've ever heard, it's pretty basic. It's like, that's the only way I know how to do it. I really admire other talented people that can do it so many other ways and utilize technology and all of that kind of stuff. But that's just not my case. So, it's not, I guess, by virtue, it's just by need that I stay pretty simple.
As you said, it's a little bit more simple compared to some other musicians, but you do it very well, though. It's so clean with the music sounding and just your skills that they really shine through, even if it is considered more simpler music. I very much enjoy it, and for people who have it's more stripped back, it's more straight up, as the title would say, with it. But I very much enjoy it.
No, thank you very much. No, these are very talented musicians. Like it's an honor for me to play with them. I mean, Tom Walsh is one of maybe the best drummer I've ever played with. I mean, if you listen to, and that's live, man, that's right there, like zoom, zoom, song after song. And, listen to his right hand and what he's doing with his hi-hat and his cymbal work and everything. And then his kick drum, like, it's amazing. And that's just three musicians. That's just me strumming along, keeping the rhythm. And then Tom playing his fat bass that he plays and the drums. And, and that's basically, if you go back and listen to like Buddy Holly and the Crickets or Elvis Presley or stuff, it all kind of started with like guitar, bass, and drums, and some keyboard sprinkled in, and that I love that. I love that feeling. I feel like for me, too much instrumentation can sometimes get in the way of the song or the lyrics or whatever, Yeah, no. I'm glad you noticed that. That's cool that it's coming across, And fortunately, I just found out Carl Capriolio called me last week to tell me that he's excited about the activity that this record has created and how it's doing on the digital world. And now we're going to print it into vinyl copies. And we're going to do a second video after Let the Praying Begin for the song Showbiz Boogie. And so I'm very excited about that.
Well, I'm very happy for you that you're getting, obviously some great traction with the album, that, you're getting vinyl and, also another music video as well. It shows that, like, obviously people are, gravitating towards it, but also that the music speaks for itself, that people enjoy it.
It surprises me because there's so much choice out there. I mean, between 2,000 and 3,000 songs every single day go up on these music platforms. I have a song on the record, in fact, called the Septuagenarian Blues, blues for musicians like me that are in their 70s that have faithfully and loyally played their instruments all this year, clinging on to a small hope that I'm going to be big. One day I'm going to be big. I'm not going to give up the dream. And that's what basically Showbiz Boogie is about, by the way. It's tongue in cheek, and it's been surprising to me, but I'm super grateful and just kind of rolling with it. I can't wait to get back into the studio and record, because during the pandemic and all that stint there, I wrote about 30 some odd new songs, all basic, like old kind of, Americana rock and roll kind of songs like this, with a dash of country, a tablespoon of blues, and a little bit of soul, and just you don't know what else. It's kind of a mishmash, a cocktail, if you will, of all kinds of different things that influence us musically.
Well, for sure. So I'm kind of curious, going along with that. Like, I'm curious for you. Like, obviously, we're talking about the little bit more simple nature of your songs, but I'm curious for you. Like, how do you know when a song is complete?
I sing it to my daughter, and I used to do it to my mother, but I lost her back in 2018. God rest her soul. So my daughter is my sounding board, and I sing them to her, and I can tell, and she listens very patiently. And while you're singing it to another set of ears out of your own bubble, you can kind of sense what's working and what's not working. So the minute you introduce it to another set of ears, and my daughter, because for me, it needs to be very safe, non-judgmental, but still real. Don't try and if you don't like it, let me know. You have carte blanche to be honest. And I can tell. And then if I tweak a couple of little things, and by the time I sing it, and you can feel, I just kind of feel when it's all together, like. So she heard all of those songs on that record. She was the first one to hear them.
Oh, right on. It is always, I'm always curious how, like, musicians know when a song is complete. But it's always good to have someone else to kind of hear, because then even like just saying stuff out loud, you can kind of see like, oh, that didn't sound quite right. But also like seeing the kind of facial response or verbal response of someone.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, you can kind of just tell, like, something's not quite right here.
Yeah. Do you play? Are you a musician as well?
I've kind of dabbled. I've kind of, unfortunately, with school and work and hosting the podcast, I've kind of fallen out of it. I don't really do it very much. But obviously, like, I'm interested in it. I just haven't done it.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah. That's why I ask. I don't mean to pry, but I was just curious.
Oh, you're good. Yeah. Yeah, no, I would like to at some point, definitely kind of get back into it. But as for right now, I have some other responsibilities at this time. So no, but I'm kind of curious. So as we're starting to close out this interview, I have a couple, I think, important questions I'm curious to ask you. So with you, like, your amazing body of work, obviously I was looking through it. I was listening, the Kingbees and like DQ and the Sharks and all the music you've like worked on and released. I'm curious for you, what is like the album or song you were most proud of?
The first Kingbees album.
Nice.
That's a no-brainer for me. Yeah, that changed my life. That established me as a recording songwriter. That gave me confidence to sing in front of people, because I was always just a guitar player for the 8 years previous to that. All the gigs I got was just as a guitar player, never as a singer. And but I studied voice. I went to a vocal coach by the name of Gloria Bennett here in Los Angeles, God rest her soul. And she worked with me for quite some time. And it's funny because after me, She was a retired opera singer from New York, and I was one of her first rock students. But after me, I saw Vince Neil from Motley Crue in there one time in the waiting room waiting for lesson, and Anthony from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Exene from X, and so Gloria branched out and helped a lot of people with their singing at that time in LA. But she and I went way back. The record itself just kind of like helped me with confidence, really, and encouraged me to want to write more. But unfortunately, the record company, there was a lot of pressure because we had such great success with that first record with the song My Mistake. It was a regional hit in a lot of areas like the Midwest, Detroit, and your area there in Indiana and Ohio and Los Angeles and New York and different places, and London, England, and some places. And so they were like, you got to come up with another. You got to come up. So the second record, it was rushed, and I just felt like my songs they didn't have a chance to mature, and where they weren't really totally completed like they were on the first run. And this record, straight up, there was no rush. I had all the time in the world to do these songs the way I wanted to do them. And when we record the next set of 10 songs, they're also going to be songs that I feel are completed, like they've really, because I had a few years to write these. It started in the pandemic and just started, recorded this record straight up last summer. So 4 years to really, tweak and tighten things up,
Oh, definitely, for sure. And I think it definitely shows, like, people can tell if a song is rushed or it's not fully thought out. And like when I was listening to Straight Up, like you just tell you sound like, I don't know how, I'm going to try to think of a good way to describe it, but it sounds like the songs can breathe, that, like everything, you can hear everything, and that, nothing is, the small details are there, nothing is overlooked.
That's right. Yes. To the point where I knew that if I just add a little dab of vocal harmony on just the song title or just the hook or the chorus, you might say, because one of the things I learned way back with the Kingbees is it's to never underestimate the sophistication of the human ear. The human ear can pick up a lot more than, so you don't need to be jamming it full of a lot of stuff, right? Like thrash. That's okay for discotheques. So discotheques became big in the late 60s and the 70s, and people wanted to go in and hear the thump and the thrash. But I was more leaning toward what I love about the original, like the subtleties of like Elvis Presley records, or even going back to Robert Johnson, or going back before that and Jimmy Rogers, the singing brakeman from the late 1920s, or before that Charlie Patton from the Dockery Plantation, Charlie Patton's first records, and he wrote Spoonful, which Eric Clapton and Cream recorded in the 60s, and if you go back and listen to those original records, the sophistication in the simplicity and the musicality, because it takes a lot more talent, I think, and a lot more rehearsal and practice to hold back than it does to just go full out. Anybody can step on the gas to the floor, and like that. But man, to try and say everything that your life is about in one note, that's the key for me.
Well, I think so, and I think there's power with doing like the small things or the simple things better. That you don't, as you say, you don't have to add a bunch of things. If you focus on what you want to deliver and do it very effectively, then that kind of makes up for we have all this stuff, but nothing is like really distinct from each other.
Yes, that's right. Very, very good observation. And I felt like this record captured that. I felt like Paul Rosso, the engineer, because a lot of these studio engineers, they're in the studio 6 days a week, and they're recording everything from punk music to jingles but he really got what I'm about, like, immediately, and that made the big difference. Like that's the big difference. It's like when you go to bands that are playing around tonight all over America, they're going to go into these nightclubs and they're going to play trusting the nightclub's local sound man, and that sound man can make or break their sound and their show. If that sound man doesn't get them and he's just trying to mix them like every other band that he mixes that week, all 6 nights in a row, because that's his job. No, but you find some sound men that they really do each night. They treat the bands, as artists, and that's a rare thing to find. And it was a magical thing to find that chemistry with an engineer, and then the 3 of us, and it was a magical afternoon. I knew it. Because at our stage, it's easy to get by on your talent. I could stand up on stage with anybody in the world and hold my own playing the guitar anytime, 24 hours a day. I have no problem with that. But that's not the same as a group of guys getting in and creating magic. That's a different thing. And that's really the rock and roll that inspired all of the high school youth and the young people back in the 50s to the heights of fanaticism, or being fans that because it was real. What Elvis Presley was doing wasn't just show. It was real. It was, people needed it. They needed to feel it in their hearts, and then their groins, and then their spirits, and I don't want to lose that, and I try to do that with my harmonica playing. It's just I played the harmonica on this. I don't have very much lead guitar on this record because I was doing the harmonica as the lead guitar, on this record, and because I felt like it was a more direct way to express myself from my mouth, and so it came out pretty good.
Oh, for sure. It really captured the emotions of each song and what the stories you're trying to tell and the themes in the album. I think it's incredible, and I highly recommend, if anyone has not given a listen, definitely do that. I will leave some links for Straight Up in the description of the podcast. Please check it out. But Jamie, I got one final fun question, and then we close on this interview here soon. You've met, obviously, just talking with you, you've met, many incredible musicians, but I'm curious for you, who's the most famous person you have met who is not a musician?
The most famous person I've met that is not a musician, Jack Nicholson.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, he was a friend of Harry's, and Harry and I, a couple of years in a row, went over to Jack Nicholson's for Thanksgiving, and that was it. No, actually, I take that back. Sorry, Jack. I take that. Marlon Brando came to Harry's 75th birthday party, and that was a big thrill. Yeah, that was
wow.
So I have to scratch Jack and put in Marlon.
well, two incredible. People would be happy they met one or the other. You got to meet both in your life. Wow.
Yeah, Harry had a lot of admirers, man. I met a lot of people. Listen, when I was playing with Harry, Chaka Khan got up on stage and jammed with us 2 different nights playing drums. She's a killer drummer. People don't know that. Chaka Khan is a killer. John Densmore, the drummer from The Doors, he came up and jammed with us. Joni Mitchell got up and sang with us a couple of times. I came off stage one night and there was Bono from U2 standing right there. And these are all fans of Harry's. And I had no idea that he was such a popular, because I had never seen Repo Man or Alien. Although I haven't seen Repo Man since, but I watched Alien. His role in Alien was amazing. It was just amazing and terrifying. He's looking for his kitty. Here, kitty, 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 kitty. And he was the first one, I think, attacked by the monster. It's but he was a musician before he was an actor. So was Dennis. Dennis was a musician before he was an actor. And that's why they kind of, they sought me out to, get involved with them, because they wanted to do music and get back to their roots. We produced a lot of fun nights for people. I will say that, it was a lot of fun.
Well, it definitely sounds like, but, just, as I mentioned earlier, Harry is just a true talent, and just everyone who kind of gravitated towards him and all the admirers and stuff, it makes a lot of sense just how truly talented he was. No,
absolutely. He my favorite role that I've ever seen him in, and I because especially since we've lost him, I miss him, and so I'll look at some of his old movies. But I loved him in a movie with Dustin Hoffman in the 1970s called Straight Time. That was a killer. He was also really good at the movie that Jack Nicholson directed called Missouri Breaks. That was a good Western too. And Marlon Brando was in that as well. Marlon and Randy Quaid, Dennis's older brother, and a dear departed friend of mine by the name of Fred Forrest. Fred was in that. I don't know if you've seen that, but I recommend that, Matthew. You might like that. It's called Missouri Breaks.
I have not. I'm not familiar, but I'm definitely. I'm gonna add that to my movie list. I'm definitely gonna watch.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, right on, right on. I'm definitely gonna do that. Now, as we're closing out this interview, like Jamie, thank you so much for your time. It was incredible to meet and chat with you.
No, Matthew, the pleasure is all mine. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's surprising to me, but it's also very joyful, and it's inspirational for me to want to go and keep recording and writing and playing. And because my mother used to always say to me, "Jamie, son, you never know who your music is touching." And so I'm glad that you've listened to this and that you've had a chance to share it with me, because that creates the energy going back and forth like an audience. So thank you, Matthew. Thank you a lot, tons.
Oh, of course. And now, like, before we head out, so I'm kind of curious. So obviously, we're closing out April, heading into May. So, like, what's your plans for the rest of this year?
Well, to breathe, really, just to breathe. I don't have any other plans. I don't have any plans. Well, like I said, we're going to schedule to shoot a video for, and when I say shoot a video, like Let the Praying Begin, we shot that in 2.5 hours. We don't, it's not like doing a big production. And hopefully I'll be able to get out and do some shows to perform these songs. It's all just kind of unfolding now. So, I'm gonna kind of go where the music takes me, if that makes any sense. I'm just gonna, I'm a semi-retired, musician, septuagenarian musician. But if this gets me out of the house and out to play some music, I'd be glad to do it. But no plans, just to watch Dodger baseball and hang out with my little dog and just live life.
Those sound like phenomenal plans. That would be awesome. So I hope you get to catch up on a lot of Dodgers baseball and enjoy the time with your family and dog. But now, as we're closing down, I said I will leave some links for Jamie James in the description of this podcast. As I said, please check out his great work. Straight Up is available wherever you stream music. But for Jamie James, I'm your host, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Super Cool Radio. And remember, stay frosty.